Welcome to 49ers Live, presented by Webex by Cisco. I'm Lindsey Pallares. For the postseason, we are inviting our colleagues from around the league to help preview the 49ers' upcoming matchup. Today, I'm joined by Tim Twentyman, Detroit Lions senior writer and insider. Tim, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Lindsey. Appreciate it.
So the Detroit Lions, they have made history at this point, penned their names into the history books, ending a 32-year drought in Detroit without a playoff win. Where is the excitement level for this organization on this postseason run?
Yeah, it's pretty off the hook. This city is electric. I don't know if anybody watched the wild card and the divisional games. I'm sure the noise level and the electricity probably just came right out of the television screen because the atmosphere and that environment in Ford Field was terrific. Look, it's a franchise it's a fan base, I should say, that's been really hungry for this kind of success. And this is really a perfect head coach and a perfect team. They fit the city, right? They're gritty, they're tough, they're resilient, everything that you think of when you think of Detroit. And so this fan base is 100% behind them. We have the GM building's got blue now. There's one of the famous statues in Detroit's wearing a Lions jersey. So look, everybody is behind this team. It's a football town, and it has been even when they've been losing. But now that they get a little taste of this, they have a thirst for it, and they certainly want more. They're looking at their first Super Bowl appearance ever, and that's what the goal, and that's what this city is really excited for, and hopefully the Lions can bring them that on Sunday.
So Dan Campbell and the Lions have now knocked off two teams at Ford Field. What are your biggest takeaways from watching them win that wild card and the divisional round?
Yeah, I think the way Jared Goff is playing right now is the one thing that jumps out to me. Look, they've given up some plays on defense. Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, it's an aggressive defense, and they're going to give up some plays, but they're going to make some plays too. And we've seen that with some of the turnovers that they've created. They're top 5 in the league over the last 5 games with takeaways. But to me, it's just the way that Jared Goff has played. He's commanded this offense, how he's played with poise. He hasn't turned the ball over once in the playoffs. He's making all the throws. And look, you know as well as I do, Lindsey, when your quarterback is playing at an elite level, you have a chance to go in and win on every single Sunday. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. I mean, I can't imagine the emotions that Jared was going through in that wild card game. It was the team that kind of traded him away, that dumped him, didn't want him anymore. They changed quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford goes there, wins the Super Bowl in his first game, and now he's back here. And to hear 66,000 people chant Jared Goff's name, I'm sure that had to be an overwhelming experience for him. And then to play the way that he did and get all that off his back, and then double it up and play just as well the next week. He's playing really, really well right now. And like I said, when your quarterback's hot, you got a chance.
You've got a hot quarterback, and because of that, the unsung heroes of every team, the offensive line. The Lions did not come out of that divisional round injury-free. What is the latest on Jonah Jackson, Sam Laporta, Frank Ragnow? I saw that Laporta, obviously a tight end, was a new injury and did not practice today on Wednesday.
Yeah, didn't practice Wednesday. Still dealing with that knee. Had a really nasty hyperextension bone bruise week 18. And so, I think that's, but he's played both weeks after that. I would expect him to play. I think that's just kind of, monitoring the knee, giving him a little bit rest. I think he's going to be good to go. The news is not as good for Jonah Jackson. They're starting left guard. Injured his knee, will not play, Sunday in San Francisco. They're hoping that if they advance beyond that, he could be available to them in the Super Bowl potentially. Also, their number 2 tight end, Brock Wright, hurt his forearm. He's not going to play either. So they signed Zach Ertz, a guy that you guys know pretty well over there out on the West Coast from his time in Arizona. He's on the practice squad, and we could see him maybe a little bit in Sunday's game, depending on how well he gets up to speed on the scheme and the plays and everything else Thursday and Friday in practice. But look, they're going to miss Jonah Jackson. But this offensive line has dealt with the shuffle all year long. Guys have been in and out, and still they've played at an elite level. This is a Lions team that threw for 4,000 yards, rushed for over 2,000 yards. Like San Francisco, they're top 5 in the league in passing and top 5 in the league in rushing. And it really all starts with those guys up front. Penei Sewell and Trent Williams are probably the 2 best tackles in football. Yours is on the left, ours is on the right. And you see, they'll run plays their way. They'll scheme plays because they're so good. Frank Ragnow is one of the best centers in the league, and Taylor Decker's been doing it a long time. So look, everything starts offensively with Detroit up front. They've got a top 3 offensive line in football. They're going to miss one of their guys, but they should be all right. And that's really going to be, who they look to. That's been their strength all season. And those are going to be the guys. Detroit goes on offense as those guys go up front. So it should be a great matchup against a terrific front 7 on the 49ers defense.
You touched upon this earlier, Jared Goff playing lights out. The last time these 2 teams met was in that season opener of the 2021 season. That was Jared Goff's very first game with the Lions, Dan Campbell's first game as head coach. How have you seen him grow and progress in Detroit since then?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between his time with the Rams and his time here is just his ownership of the offense. And I give Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator here, a lot of credit. Sometimes an offensive coordinator will get that job and he'll be like, okay, well, here's my scheme. Here are my principles. This is what I like to do. Everybody fit into it. And that wasn't the case with Ben. He invited Jared into his office. They built this offense around, Jared, what do you like? What don't you like? Obviously I've got some principles I want to have here, but let's build this thing around things that you do well. And when you do that, there's an ownership that your quarterback kind of gets with that offense, right? And they speak the same language offensively. I bet if you put them in a room, they could finish each other's sentences. I mean, that's how in lockstep they are with each other. And I think that's been the biggest difference with Jared. Just there's a comfort level. This is his offense. He's the guy. There's no doubt about that. Now you give him an offensive line that can protect him. You give him weapons. You give him 2 running backs in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. You give him an all-pro receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown. You give him a Pro Bowl tight end as a rookie. Now you protect him and you give him weapons. Jared Goff was the number 1 pick for a reason. He can sling it, and he's very accurate. And they've just set up a system now here where they play to his strengths, and it's allowed him to play his best football. And I think that's been the biggest difference.
You talk about Jared Goff's arsenal of weapons. 2 pass catchers he's had a lot of success with, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. They're going to go up against a top 5 secondary in San Francisco, and they have 22 picks on the year during that 2023 regular season. How would you assess that matchup?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. And you know what? I would also put Warner and Greenlaw in there too. I know they're not in the secondary, but those linebackers can run and they can cover. And I think that's an extension almost of your secondary, how they take the middle of the field away. And I think that'll be really a key. I mean, St. Brown and Laporta do most of their damage, and even Gibbs on some of those option routes in the middle of the field. You look at this Lions offense, they do a lot of deep ends. They really like to use the middle of the field. And when you've got 2 linebackers like that, the safety play in San Francisco is really, really good. I think that to me is what to watch. Can the Lions function in the middle of the field where they really do a lot of their work? Now they're going to take some shots at Jamison Williams on the outside, and San Francisco's got to be ready for that. But that to me is the matchup. Is can Sam and St. Brown find the holes in the middle that they've been able to get them to this point? This is certainly the best secondary that they've faced, I think, all season long. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to this one.
Is there a matchup that you're particularly interested in seeing play out on Sunday?
Yeah, there's 2
A
guys.
few, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think you might know where I'm going, but I alluded to Penei Sewell earlier, the talented right tackle. And I think when you talk about the 2 best tackles in football, it's Trent Williams and Penei Sewell. And Penei's just in his 3rd season. But that matchup against him and Nick Bosa, I think is going to be dynamic. I mean, Penei has had some great matchups this year. Max Crosby, Donnell Hunter, Micah Parsons. Penei Sewell has played every single snap for the Detroit Lions this year. He's allowed 1 sack all season long. And
Very impressive.
he's just, yeah, and I think it's been 12 pressures. It's some crazy number that you talk about at the tackle position, especially with how dynamic these pass rushers are in the league nowadays. He has been terrific. He is their best offensive lineman, and that's saying something because Frank Ragnow is there too. But he's a guy that they actually scheme around. They scheme plays to get him in space to run his way because he's so dynamic. I think if he lost 50 pounds, he could be the best tight end in the league. He's that athletic.
I love that.
Yeah, so he
I
is.
feel the same about Trent Williams as well.
Yeah,
He
100%.
is crazy fast, so I definitely understand the thought process there.
And that matchup will be great when Aiden Hutchinson pops over to that side too. Even though I think it'll be more with McKivitz on with Aiden, but to me, it's that Bosa Sewell matchup is going to be great because you're talking about two of the best at their position.
We talked about this on your podcast just a little bit earlier, but Deebo Samuel, wide receiver, his status is currently up in the air for San Francisco. How are the Lions approaching game planning with him not certain for Sunday?
Yeah, I think you have to prepare for him just because of, you look at the compete level with that guy, and he's battled through some injuries before and has played. And, I think that's really a different offense without him. And I think if you're Detroit, they've been pretty aggressive with how they've blitzed, especially from the secondary. And when I look at San Francisco, like they've got blitz beaters like that. When Deebo Samuel to me is like a blitz beater. The same with Christian McCaffrey. He's a blitz beater. He's a guy that you can just swing it out to real quick, do those wide receiver screens, get the ball in their hands so quick that then allow them to do what they do best, is just run after the catch. And so I think it really changes the dynamic of their offense without Deebo Samuel. And I think it will allow Detroit maybe to be a little bit more aggressive with their blitz. We saw Fatu Melifon with their safety. He had 2 sacks in the division game. Their nickel corner, Brian Branch, also had a sack. So they like to bring that pressure from the secondary. And I think if you don't have Deebo, I think maybe you're more apt to bring it. But if he's on the field, you have to be very, very careful because all Brock has to do is see it, get it into his hands, and now you're dealing with all sorts of problems with Deebo Samuel run after the catch. And so it would be a huge loss, and I think it would actually affect and change maybe the aggressiveness of Detroit's defense with or without him.
Home field advantage and experience also 2 big factors in this game. Obviously, the Lions headed to the Bay Area. San Francisco's been in this game for the last 5 seasons for the Lions. First NFC Championship game since 1991. How much stock do you put into those 2 factors?
I think experience is a good thing, but, I think Dan Campbell and some of the players talked about this on Wednesday too. And when you go on the road, and this, Linz, it's kind of a us against everybody mentality, right? It's about us. I think there's going to be some Lions fans that travel over there. We've seen it all year long, but this is a Lions team that hasn't lost back-to-back games all year long. They're a pretty resilient bunch, and they've had some big road wins. You go all the way back to week 1, going to Kansas City and beating the Chiefs. They were raising the banner and, pumping their chest and looking at their rings from the championship.
And I think
Detroit went in there.
The ski masks one week too. I think Detroit, I remember. Thursday
they
night.
went in there. They went in there and they played tough. And just a few weeks ago, they went into Dallas. I mean, that was a place that the Cowboys hadn't lost all year. They were averaging 40 points a game at home, and Detroit holds them to 20. And a lot of people think they probably should have won that game. Maybe there's an asterisk there, but I think that gives you confidence when you go to Arrowhead and win, when you go to Dallas and play the way they did. So, I think it's just kind of, they're going to have a us versus everybody mentality. They've played well on the road. I think the experience thing is maybe a little bit more, but you've got guys like Jared Goff who's played in this game, who's been to a Super Bowl. CJ Gardner-Johnson on the other side was in the Super Bowl last year. So Detroit's got some guys that have been in this game. Overall, more experience in San Francisco, but I don't think going on the road is going to bother these guys. They've kind of got that us versus everybody mentality, and it gets to kind of show on the road. And I think there's something about this team that maybe likes that a little bit.
Well, we certainly expect to see some Lions fans here, but we are excited for you to see the faithful in full force. I promise the atmosphere is very electric and our fans get very into it. So looking forward to having you and the Lions in town. for what is going to shape up to be, I think, a really exciting NFC Championship game. And thank you so much for jumping on this with me and talking the big storylines.
No problem. I would expect nothing else from the San Francisco faithful on Sunday.